see we have some folks joining from the Netherlands, Malawi, Colombia, Ukraine, New York. Welcome. It's great to have you. We'll get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for our Spring 2026 What's New in CommCare webinar. My name is Sarah Strauss, and I'm the Senior Manager of Product Marketing for CommCare here at Dimagi. We are so excited to have you with us today. Our theme for the webinar and for this year is all about unlocking potential. And we have some fantastic new updates we can't wait to share with you that do just that. For anyone who might be new to our work, a very warm welcome to you. At its heart, CommCare empowers organizations like yours to build your own mobile, web, and even messaging applications to deliver services, manage clients and cases, and collect data, even in the most remote offline settings. We're proud to say there are CommCare users in over 130 countries, and over 1 million people have used apps built on CommCare to date. I'll be your host for the hour, and I'm delighted to be joined by two of my amazing colleagues who will be presenting today. Cowger is the Senior Director of Product and Technology for CommCare and is joining us from Washington, D.C. We also have Rishabh Rath, our Director of CommCare Sales Engineering, dialing in from New Delhi, India. Welcome, Kai and Rishabh. Let's take a quick look at our agenda. We'll kick off with the vision driving CommCare's innovation in 2026. Then we'll dive into the product updates, which we have framed around 3 key personas that use CommCare every day: app magicians, frontline heroes, and data wizards. And we'll explain these in more detail in just a moment. We also have a bonus spotlight on security features you might not know about that could be immediately available to you depending on the plan that you're on. We'll make sure to save some time at the end for Q&A, so please drop your questions into the Q&A box as we go. All right, so before we get started, we want to take a moment to hear from you. We're about to launch a quick poll on your screen with 3 questions. First, are you using CommCare today? Second, how much experience do you have with the platform? And finally, what sector are you working in? So we can go ahead and launch the poll, and we'd love you to take the next 30 seconds to respond. All right, awesome. So about 83% using CommCare, 5% have never used it but considering, and 12% have used it in the past. Fantastic. We've got a good mix of experience. So some folks who've been using CommCare for more than 8 years, a bunch who've been using it for 5 to 8, 2 to 5 as well, and then a good mix right across these different time frames. So yeah, this is awesome. And then if we look at the sectors, we've got some folks from agriculture, a whole bunch from community health and humanitarian response, some folks from infectious disease, livelihoods, MNCH, mental health. Great to have you guys. Nutrition, primary care. Fantastic. I think we can take that down. It's great to have you, and thank you so much. It's really helpful for us to get a sense of who's on the call with us today. I'd like to hand over to Kai, who will share with us the vision driving the CommCare product team's work. So with that, I'm going to hand over to you, Kai.
Thank you so much, and welcome everybody. Really excited to chat with you all about our product updates. So I'll just jump right in. This year, 2026, everything we've built this year so far has sat under one idea, which is this phrase of unlocking potential. So the potential is already there. It's in the program teams who know their communities better than any software do, better than we do. It's in the frontline workers walking miles to reach a single family, and it's in the data that's already sitting in your CommCare projects today. And so what we set out to do this year is to remove what stands between that potential that already exists and the real impact that you could be having. So for us, that showed up in 3 different ways. So first, it's from access to activation. So most of you already have powerful tools And the gap isn't necessarily access, it's turning what you already have into measurable change on the ground. And that's where we focused. Secondly, it would be unlocking workflow potential. So, CommCare's most advanced capabilities have always been in the platform, but they often relied on super technical teams to be able to use them. So, this year we wanted to tease some of those out from the technical category and really put them within reach for everybody, not just for engineers or somebody who has years of technical background. And then lastly, raising the bar. So self-service and large scale has those two things have often been a trade-off for people when you procure software. The more you wanted to run by yourself, the more you gave up. And so we set out to change what a self-service product like ours can do at real scale. So for us and for the product team this year, there were really three key personas or three types of people we really think about when we're building product. So just want to introduce those now.
Thank you, Kai. That sets the stage perfectly. And I love that image of removing whatever stands between your team's potential and real impact on the ground. And to do that successfully, we have to make sure our tools support the unique day-to-day realities of everyone involved in your program. So, building on that vision, I'd like to take a moment to introduce to you the three personas that use CommCare daily. First, we have the app magician. This is the architect behind your digital tools, the administrator or builder who serves as the technical bridge between your high-level program goals and the mobile worker's reality. They might hold titles like project manager or technical lead, and they do the heavy lifting on CommCare HQ, designing the app flow, the forms, mapping out complex case management workflows, and safely deploying updates to the field. Second, we have the frontline hero. This is your mobile user out in the field. They are the true engine of the operation, using the app every single day in challenging environments and managing demanding caseloads. These are your community health workers, supervisors, and field enumerators. Above all else, what matters most to them is having a tool that's intuitive, reliable, and works seamlessly whenever and wherever they need it. And finally, we have the data wizard. This is your monitoring, evaluation, and learning team. They sit downstream of the data collection, focusing entirely on turning raw numbers into insights. Whether they're an M&E specialist, a data scientist, or researcher, they rely on CommCare to seamlessly export clean data so they can track trends, prove impact, and make data-driven decisions for the future of the program. These three personas capture the daily realities of your teams on the ground, and designing features that solve their unique challenges is exactly what has guided our latest product updates. So let's dig in, and we'll start by taking a look at what's new in CommCare for the App Magician. Over to you, Kai.
Thank you. So the app magician is the person who builds. Sometimes they're a dedicated app builder, and more often they're a program manager who learned CommCare just because, as you all know, somebody had to. And over the last year, their world has gotten harder in a few specific ways. Portfolios keep growing, there's more programs, there's more apps, more forms to maintain, and there's rarely more people to actually maintain them. So, for instance, the team that built 5 apps last year are now running 15 apps this year with the same headcount. So the people are doing the building, and the people that are doing the building often are not specialists. They understand the work deeply, but they're now expected to build and genuinely manage complex workflows. So that includes multi-case logic, referrals to different, for instance, health facilities or schools, all sorts of things that used to require specific project help from Dimagi or maybe a technical engineer or something like that. But what we've heard time and time again is that these individuals are now doing it themselves. They don't have a vendor to call, they don't have an IT team to quickly escalate to. And so when something breaks at 9 p.m. before a training, the next day, the next morning, they have to be the support team to stay up and fix it. So that's the reality that we hear, and that's the reality that we've tried to design for this year when it comes to this app magician. They don't have an engineering team behind them. They're often doing it alone or with a tiny team and under pressure. So we made three specific updates this year, and we're going to keep making updates this year that speak directly to that. So the three I'll talk about today, two of them take something that used to be hard and make it more simple. And then the last one already exists, but we're just making it even better. So the first one I'll talk about is what we're calling next generation case management. So this is the fact that case logic, case properties, especially for those of you, many of you here said you already use CommCare, so you're very familiar, hopefully, with case management. But case logic is often where people get stuck. And so we've made it dramatically easier to map your data to case properties while you're building and not have to context switch away. We also brought advanced multi-case actions. So for people who are super familiar with basic case management, but need to do way more complex things, we've also brought that into the product instead of using custom code. Secondly, we have what are called locked admin questions. This is brand new for us that we just released. And so if you, for instance, run decentralized teams, you know this real fear of, you want to give your team members or other partners that you work with freedom to customize and build on their own inside of an application you're sharing with them. But you're at the same time, you're risking somebody changing or breaking something that's super important for you to keep guardrails on. So data that you just don't want them to change, but you want to give them the flexibility to change other things within the app. So something that the data architecture truly relies on, you want to keep locked and safe. And so this is something that we've built into the product this year. And then lastly, something I'm super excited to chat about is how we're continuing to build on top of the CommCare Companion, which is the AI-powered chatbot that's available for you 24/7. And it's going to be even more than a chatbot this year. So let's start with case management. So when it comes to case management, one thing we're excited to show you, and I'll hand it over to Rishabh in a second, is when it comes to case management, this is where app builders are spending a huge amount of their time. And we did a bunch of user interviews last year, and maybe some of you on this call were present for those interviews. And if you were, thank you so much. But you spent a huge amount of your time constantly context switching in the product in the past. So you would write a question like name or date of birth. You would then leave the form, go to a separate case management page, wire up that property as a case property you want to save, come back. Hopefully you did it, cross your fingers and hope you did it right, and then keep building your form. Now we've removed that jumping. You don't need to do this back and forth between a case management page and your form builder anymore. You can now just map a case property directly from a question and keep rolling right there in the form builder. And I know that this sounds super small, but for somebody building a 50 question or 100 question form and 80 of them should be case properties, it's maybe an hour, it's maybe 3 hours of your time back that you could be spending doing something else. So instead of talking about it, I'll let you all see it. So Rishabh, take it away. I'll let you show what this looks like in the product.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kai. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to share my screen. All right, perfect. Really excited to be on this call and also super excited to be doing all the fun stuff. So like Kai mentioned, and for a lot of the folks on this call, this particular screen would be familiar. This is the form builder, which is where a bunch of folks spend a lot of time building their applications. As you'll see here, there is now a case management section right below where you enter details with the question, and you can take a look at some of these different question types and see what it looks like. So I added one new question here just to show you how this works. If I clicked on the dropdown, CommCare now automatically generates this, and I can save this. And this is not just a UI update, it's all sort of connecting in the backend. So if I clicked on manage case, I can now see that this case property has been created here as well. And if I hopped into the data dictionary, I'd be able to see it in the data dictionary as well. And this is a good way to sort of keep a track of all the case properties that you might be adding to your application. Now, if I go back into the form builder for just a quick second, it not only allows you to do this, but if you looked at a question like this one, it also points out special cases. So here, for example, I have a question that is saving multiple properties. And from this screen itself, I can actually figure out what's going on. So this notification here tells me that it's updating multiple properties. I can go in and take a quick look and see what's happening there. And so you'll realize that I've got this saved as a name property as well as a separate household ID. So these kinds of features make it incredibly simple now and give back a lot of time to app builders, because you can do all of this from within the form builder instead of going back to the manage case screen each time you wanted to do any case management. With that, I'll hand it back to Kai.
Thank you, Rishabh. Yeah, I'm super excited for this. As I said before, this seems like a small thing, but honestly, this was really important for us to get out this year because we know how hard this can be for people who are just trying to learn about case management and manage big forms. And so the second thing related to case management I would love to talk about is more on the advanced side of things. So let's imagine that you already know about case management, you have a program up and running, you're not too worried about saving case properties per se, but now you're on a more advanced use case. You want to get a little bit beyond basic case management of just saving a single case property to the case that this form is related to, but you want to do something a little more sophisticated. And often reality is much more sophisticated than simple use cases like this. So in real programs, one event often touches multiple records. So a single visit updates a mother, but also you need to sync the child record, and then you need to trigger a referral to a health clinic. All of those are different cases. And until now, doing all of those different actions required either custom code or it required somebody who's an app magician to have somebody like Rishabh on call who is highly technical and understands the system super, super deeply. Or it required talking to Dimagi directly and getting a little bit of personal assistance. And so that's what we wanted to get rid of. And so now in product, without having to turn on any sort of custom things, you can now trigger updates across multiple cases natively within the product from a single question. So you can do things like household syncing or cross-case referrals. And this advanced logic that defined complex CommCare apps is now something that is in your hands and you're able to do directly. So I'll actually hand it right back over to Rishabh, and he'll show you a little bit of what that looks like in product.
Perfect. Thanks, Sky. Just give me a second. All right, perfect. I honestly can't decide which of these are my favorite features, but this one is definitely right up there. Like I mentioned, this is an advanced feature that lets you do a bunch of different things. So first things first, you'll now notice when you go to add question and go to your advanced section, you'll see advanced case actions show up as a new question type. That is where all the magic is really happening. What exactly does it do? Let me weave up a little story through this app review. So we're in a case list of households, let's say, and within that case list, with the help of advanced case actions, I can actually interact not just with the household itself, but say all the family members that I'm tracking within those households, or other case types, other entities that might be linked to it. So here's a quick example of what this actually can do. So if I clicked on enroll members into services, while I'm still in the case list of households, I can actually see names of family members that are listed in this particular household. I can go in and create new family members as well. And all of this is wired up within the form builder, and we'll just look at it in a second. super simple to set up with all the documentation that's available. And along with this, you can also go in and do things like closing cases in bulk as well, if you'd want. So if I go back into the same case list and go to close cases this time and click here, I actually see a list of all the family members show up here as well. And I can take batch action essentially and be able to either create new cases, update close cases, or even link up parent and child case types for the more advanced workflows. And this is really where it happens. So just giving you a quick glimpse of it. We don't need to get into the weeds of this, but you'll notice that there's these 4 different actions that you see on the screen. Like I mentioned, you can create, you can update, you can close, and you can link and unlink as well. And you'll see within the same form, I'm being able to do all of these different things. So if I went into adding a new family member, I've got a separate question type here, which allows me not only to create them, but also link them back up to the household itself. So all of this is happening from within the form builder itself, and it allows you to then do bulk actions for all the different cases that you might be tracking in your CommCare application. Hope this is helpful. Do take a look at this feature, play around with it. We'd love to hear how it goes for you guys. With that, I'll hand it over back to Kai.
Cool. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so the other thing that I would love to chat about here is what we are calling locked admin questions. So this one solves a problem that gets worse the bigger that you get as an organization or the more collaborative that you are as an organization, which we obviously love to see. But it does reveal another problem in the product that we have hopefully started to patch up here. So you can picture something like a large program. You have a team that's app building. They're centrally responsible for the app, the core app, and the data architecture. And then you have a few other folks, maybe dozens of folks, maybe a couple different teams who need to adapt it for their local contexts, or they want to collaboratively work with you on the actual app itself. And so you face a pretty hard choice at this moment. You could either lock everything down and you become the bottleneck for everything. So every small change needs to go through you. Or you could open it up and just cross your fingers and hope that nobody touches anything that's super important, that the data architecture really relies on, and you just hope that nothing breaks. We don't like that you only had those 2 options. So now we give you a third option, which is called locked admin questions. So now you can choose to lock specific parts of the app as uneditable to certain people who don't have that permission. And maybe those are the most important pieces. Those are the pieces that are most important for your data architecture. Then everything else remains editable to people who have the edit application permission, but don't have the locked admin permission. So you grant freedom where it's safe, and then guardrails where it really counts. So I'm going to hand it right back over to Rishabh, who's going to show you how this works in product and where you can find it.
Perfect. Thanks, Kai. Just sharing my screen again. All right, perfect. So let's collapse this. On the form builder UI again, you'll notice that we have this additional section here called lock. And this is really where all of that magic happens. You can select from your list of questions which ones you'd like locked. But before we actually get into that, I want to quickly jump over to the permissions, because as Kai mentioned, this would be dependent on what kind of permissions your user has. And if you go into the roles and permissions section in the users tab in CommCare, you can actually define exactly who should be having this particular privilege. So you will see here under the application section, there's an option for allowing locking and unlocking questions within forms. Once you've selected it and you can create your own profiles, you can kind of decide exactly what permissions your user needs to have, and then assign users those different permissions, those different roles. And that is what is going to make this work. So as a user that has the ability to lock questions, let's take a look at what this can do. So I'm going to randomly pick up a couple of questions. Let's say this one, and maybe even this one. You'll notice that if it's not just doing this for individual sort of standalone questions, but it also allows you to lock groups. So the family member details group, I can go in and say I want to lock this so that any other app builder in my team is not able to then go in and make changes to it. So all I'm doing is saving it. Now, in the real world, someone else is going to log in. Let's see if I can log in as another user. Just going to do that. And reload this. Go back to that same form. And there you go. Now I'm logged in as a user who does not have that permission. I can go in and see the exact same form, but you'll notice now that the questions that were locked, I can't edit. And it's not just the labels, but it's linked up to the entire sort of attributes of that particular question within the form. So I can go in and check all of these. They're all grayed out. And I can actually go in and see the ones that I didn't lock, which I can still edit. So this is an incredibly powerful feature, especially when you're working with a team where different people might have different permissions. Somebody might want to have admin access or the ability to actually lock out questions, and a different set of people might want to work on, say, different sections of a particular application. This particular feature makes it incredibly easy to do that. I hope you all can check this one out as well. With that, I'll hand it back to Kai.
Thank you, Rishabh. All right. And then now I will talk about the last bit for the App Magician. So we have already released the CommCare Companion in the past, but I do want to flag that A, this is available to everybody. So in case you have not turned it on, but B, we are shipping a pretty significant update at the end of this week. So just to remind everybody, the reason we built the CommCare Companion is because we also heard the very common story of people being deep in app building. You hit a wall, and then you have basically two options here. You have go dig through our documentation, which is quite comprehensive, but it is, again, comprehensive. It's got a lot in there, and you have to read through it. Or maybe reach out to our support team. And our support team is incredible, but there is a lag in obviously the response time. And so because of that, we wanted to also provide another option, which is a 24/7 immediate chatbot that you can chat with that will query our documentation and give you the right answers. And we're constantly improving this as well with more accurate answers, that type of thing. It is built on our own proprietary OpenChat Studio. We evaluate it and we constantly improve it over time. And there is no sort of data, privacy security concerns that you need to be aware of when it comes to using our chatbot. I do want to say two things super clearly. So one is that the companion has been available for some time now, and you can find it, configure it, and turn it on yourself. But we are shipping a pretty significant update this week. And the update itself is to give the companion a bit more awareness and context about your apps. So not your data, but your apps and your app structure. So one thing that our AI companion does today is help you with the actual context that you give it when it comes to, help me configure the sex path expression or something like that. But it doesn't quite know what your app looks like until you give it that information. So by the end of this week, we'll actually have a new update, which automatically gives the AI companion context about what your app does. Again, not your data, but how it's structured. And so when you ask it a question, like, how do I configure this type of question? It already knows the types of questions you're asking in your app. So it'll help you help you with a contextually relevant question rather than more of a generic standard question. Just hopefully this makes the companion much, much more helpful and better targeted answers for you. So I'll quickly hand it over to Rishabh to talk a little bit about how to configure the actual chatbot itself in case you haven't configured it yet. And then we will jump into the Frontline Hero after that.
Perfect. Thanks, Sky. Just gonna flip this back up. All right, perfect. So we heard this from a few different folks. While, as Kai mentioned, this companion has been around for a while, many people didn't really know how to enable it within their project spaces. And I want to take just a few seconds to quickly show you where you can enable it. So on your project space, on the top right, if you clicked on that settings cog and went into project settings, and then within that, the panel on the left, if you navigated to feature previews, you're going to see this list here. I can zoom in actually. And the first one here is called CommCare Companion AI Support Bot. You want to make sure that you check that box to enable it and then hit update previews. As soon as you do that, you will see this little box show up over here called Need Help. And in the context of, say, the form builder, if I click that box, it's going to then pop up this chatbot for me. I'm pretty sure everybody on this call is well versed with prompting bots, so I'm not going to get into all of that. I'm super excited to see all the new updates that are coming up for the companion, but you can use this as much as you'd like when you're working through your applications, building applications within CommCare, complex XPath, or just trying to figure out some logic or validation or anything else within your applications. Just put it all in there and you would get incredibly helpful responses. Hope this is clear. Just make sure that you follow the steps to enable it for your project spaces. All right, with that, I will hand it back to Sarah.
All right, thank you, Rishabh. I love those demos. They're so awesome, and there's just some incredibly powerful capabilities that have just been released recently that are going to save folks a ton of time. And I'm personally really excited about all the ways that these new tools are going to help you build faster and achieve more in 2026 and beyond. So next up, we're highlighting the Frontline Hero and sharing how CommCare is stepping up to support this specific persona. And so I'm going to hand over to Kai.
Thank you, Sarah. So I have to be honest, the Frontline Hero is really the reason why any of this exists, and so much of the reason why I do the work that I do. So it's the community health worker, the field officer, the farmer, the person who puts on that backpack every day and goes to find a family that maybe didn't show up at a clinic. And over the last year, it's very clear that their job has gotten harder in many ways that rarely show up in many products you use in many of the roadmaps. And so we want to be sure to change that narrative a bit. So we understand that caseloads are heavier, the areas that they cover keep expanding. That same worker who managed one village is now responsible for several, often on foot or maybe by a bicycle. And their programs are also evolving. They're expected to keep up with, tons of different programs, sometimes little training, and little technical support. So through it all, the data that comes out of so much of their important work still needs to be right. And we need to make sure we hold high quality standards for everybody. So we know that we can't carry their bag for them, but what we can do is make sure that they have the right tool in their hand that meets their needs, and make sure that it works, it's fast, it's clear, and that's what this next feature is about. So when it comes to the reality of work today, you're often covering more ground. That's one thing that's very clear to us through all of the work that we've done, through all of our field visits, et cetera, is that the list of names keeps growing And oftentimes, one thing that's incredibly helpful is to see things on a map. And so I'm super excited to share that we are continuing to boost our geospatial features that are in the hands of a frontline worker so she can actually see it in her phone today. So our geospatial features continue to turn the case list, so just that list of names on a phone, into an actual interactive map where they can go and see where these cases are. And they also can see their cases just as markers, but also you can see what's on your screen here, which is a color-coded sort of what we call geospatial polygons or color-coded zones on a map that help them find the right people to talk to or maybe enter the right area. And you can toggle these layers on and off. You can have them focus on specific areas, etc. So you can help them by planning a day of visits in specific polygons rather than them having to guess. And we've had plenty of success in these types of programs recently. And so we want to continue to push this type of workflow. So we did build it for real life conditions. And this map loads responsively, works on most phones, and it has very, very clear indicators of where you're trying to go and what data is coming in. So I will actually hand it over to Rishabh again for a demo on sort of how to configure some of these geospatial features and what they look like.
Perfect. Thank you, Kai. So before we get into the boring configuration, let's actually look at the fun stuff. So I'm on a CommCare app, which is going to show you what this actually looks like. So like I mentioned, with the help of these geospatial features, you can get a ton of information right there in your hands. So imagine I'm tracking, let's say, cooperatives in my catchment area. You can see on this case list, I've got a property called distance, which is essentially telling me how far away I am as a mobile user from them. And then if I clicked on those three dots and clicked on view on map, I can actually go in and see exactly where these cases are. And there's three different layers here that you can interact with. There's the polygon itself, which is telling you exactly what that area is. You've got the markers. If you tapped on them, you can actually see the name of your cases. And then you've got these geo points as well, which are static points within that particular polygon. And you can actually choose to either show or remove these from the screen, depending on how you'd want to use it. But this is an incredibly powerful feature to help that frontline worker be able to quickly identify exactly the cases that she's working with, and have not just a static view, but be able to see all of these in this particular manner on a map. And this works incredibly well on most Android handsets, works pretty smoothly. Now to show you where you could actually configure this, it's honestly quite simple. All you want to do is save some case properties within your application. We'll not get into the details of that, but here on the case list, you just have to select these particular options, these formats, and you're good to go. There's a ton of documentation available on the feature itself. Again, I would highly encourage everyone here to go play around with all these cool new geospatial features that we offer now. Perfect. With that, I will hand it back to Sarah.
Awesome, Rishabh. Thank you so much for that. I'm so excited to see what a difference this is going to make, particularly for frontline workers who have very heavy caseloads, who are working in environments that are maybe extremely cluttered. It's really, really difficult to identify one home from another. And I think this is going to be such a game changer. So now I want to turn us to look at our final persona, which is the data wizard. And I am going to hand right back to Kai to share how CommCare is evolving to support the realities of these users.
Thank you, Sarah. Cool. So I have been there with the data wizard themselves. So this persona is very near and dear to my own heart as well when I was a CommCare user. So the data wizard is turning what the frontline hero has spent all day doing, collecting, visiting families, and turning it into something that a program can actually act on, or maybe something that a funder will believe in. It's a role highly under pressure now for a few reasons. Much of their time is going to the wrong thing. Much of their time is going to extracting, cleaning, and reshaping that data. And the work that actually matters, which is spotting that a program needs to maybe pivot or something like that. Often those are the pieces that get put to the side to maintain actual data pipelines and data workflows and things like that. And the bar for proof keeps rising as well. As we all know, there's more and more requirements for real-time evidence, rigorous testing, that type of thing. So what the piece that I would want to talk about here is a new feature that we are building and soon going to put into the hands of our customers called the CommCare Data Pipeline. This takes field data and helps you move that into systems where you are actually doing your insights and actually doing your visualizations directly. So the CommCare Data Pipeline is the actual plumbing for moving your data. So it doesn't do all of the analysis for you per se, because we understand in many of your programs, the reality is that you already have systems in place. You have things like SQL environments. You use Azure for some people that I've talked to. Other folks we've talked to use Postgres. So there are other systems that already exist that maybe other programs in your organization already feed their data into. You don't need another data analysis system tacked on top of it. What you need is to make sure that the amazing work that our frontline heroes are doing and collecting that data and putting it into CommCare, that data easily gets somewhere else that your organization already manages. So that's sort of the story we're working with here. And what we want to do is enable you to move that data via this new product called CommCare Data Pipeline, move that data into a system that already exists, and then a third step, which is to forward that data to a tool that you all also already use that's incredibly important for you to visualize it or to share some of the reporting of it. So think DHIS2, think about Superset, maybe Power BI. These are examples of tools that our CommCare Data Pipeline can forward data into already, and we're just going to continue building on top of that as well. So again, this is a pipeline that we've built. We are not reinventing SQL tools. We're not reinventing, Power BI, that type of thing. What we want to do is understand the reality that those tools already exist. What you need is to get your data there quickly and easily, and scale in scale too. So before I hand it off to Rishabh to show you a really, really quick demo, two things. One is that this is a robust foundation for you all to build off of. Second, we are building this similar to the same principles that we build CommCare off of, which is open source, trustworthy, secure. You can download this tool and run it yourselves, even today, if you'd like. It is in an open source code base, but we are preparing to share widely with our audience in Q3 of this year. So we're incredibly, incredibly excited. It's gone through a lot of stress testing and scale work. So hopefully this is going to work super well for some of our customers here. Okay, so I will hand it over to Rishabh to show you a little bit of this.
All right. There we go. Let me just share my screen again. Cool. So I've had the privilege of setting this up for my own self, and I am super excited playing around with this. A majority of my day-to-day conversations with different partners are essentially around creating robust data pipelines from CommCare to other tools that they might be working with. And this allows you to do exactly that. There's broadly three things that are happening here. Data is coming into CommCare from the front lines. All you're doing is setting up exports within CommCare and just enabling certain features within those exports so that they can get connected to this data pipeline right here. Once you've done that, you can, after you put in all your credentials, be able to export all of this data to your own database. And as Kai mentioned, once you've been able to do that, you can also then go in and forward it to services like Power BI, Superset, DHIS2, so on and so forth. So let's see what that really looks like. If I swiped here, actually, if I go back, here's where all of these exports are showing up. I've run them, and now on my database, I've got all of this data from CommCare with the help of that CommCare data pipeline. Not only that, within that same pipeline, I was also then able to produce a dashboard like this in Power BI. All of this is happening right from the screen here. And all you have to do is, in a certain order, go in and set up all of these different entities right here, put in your credentials, and then just see the magic happen. We've got logs, which give you full sort of insights into exactly what happened. And the dashboard here is incredibly helpful for you to sort of figure out at a glance how well the pipeline's working. I hope this is helpful for folks. I'm really excited to see more iterations on this and also see uptake and see how our different partners use this. So really looking forward to this release. All right, with that, I'll hand it back to Kai.
Thank you, Rishabh. And yeah, as Rishabh said, this is going to be released very soon, so we're super excited. Lastly, I'd be remiss if I did not mention some security features. As you all know, security is where it starts, especially for us at Dimagi. We try not to do anything that jeopardizes any sort of security because we understand that some of the world's most vulnerable populations, their data exists within our systems. So we take it incredibly seriously. It's the first thing we think of when we design and build anything. And so every capability we've shown you today, from the AI that we talked about, the data pipeline, the case logic, was built with that commitment first. So it has to hold for all three of these personas, the building the apps, those frontline heroes carrying it into the field, and then the data pipeline moving that data into other places. I do want to take a moment to just talk about a couple features that already exist in our platform very briefly, which I think it's just important for everybody to know exists, and it's good for everyone to make sure that you consider these features when it comes to using our product. So the first one is just make sure everybody's aware, not only in our product, but in the products you use, widely. Ensure you're using two-factor authentication or multiple factor authentication. A password by itself can be a single point of failure. Frontline staff often, or web users often will share devices or work within offices, and it's just important to make sure that you always have a second factor when you are logging into tools. And so this includes CommCare as well. So make sure you are adding a second factor when it comes to CommCare directly, and you can do this through your account, or you can go to our wiki page if you want a quick walkthrough of how that works. We also have login timeouts. So if you're an admin who manages a project space, you can actually configure login timeout session. So this is when a user is idle on our product for a certain amount of time. You can say, hey, let's just revoke the login access for people if they're, let's say they open up their laptop or computer and they're working on CommCare and then they go off to lunch. If they're away for an hour or something like that, we want to make sure that we log them out properly so that nothing bad happens when they're back to their device. And then lastly, granular roles and permissions. It's very self-explanatory, but we are continuing to build out more and more granular roles and permissions in our product. And we did make a big update this year in actually how the roles look on the screen. So instead of kind of a big pop-out modal on the screen, we did move it to a different page. So it's just easier to scroll through, easier to find the permission that you need. And we're going to keep doing this because not everybody should see everything. And we do believe in that principle of least privilege. So we want to put into your hands as granular permissions as you need when you're using CommCare. So like I said, none of these things are revolutionary. And honestly, that's kind of the point. Security is one of those things where you need to go back to the basics. And as long as you do the basics well, advanced, advanced security principles don't matter as much when you're doing those principles and those basic things really, really, really well. Cool. So that's it on the actual demo side. I will hand it back over to Sarah. Thank you all so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Kai. We've seen a lot of new features today, and we want to take a moment to hear from each of you. You'll see a poll pop up on your screen in a minute, and we'd love you to take a couple of minutes just to respond to that. So, some things we'd love to ask you: what are you most excited about that you saw today? And are there CommCare features that you would like to see added that weren't there today? So, we'll give you a couple of minutes just to respond to those. Ooh, this is contentious. So lots of love for the case management features, locked admin questions as well. CommCare Companion, always super popular. So we're seeing some really nice numbers of folks really excited about these new features, and lots of love from our data wizards here too. Fantastic. We love to get feedback from folks. So definitely add some features there if there are ones that are still on your list. All right, so before we head into Q&A, I'd like to highlight a few of the best resources available to support you on your CommCare journey. If you don't already use CommCare, you can get started for free and upgrade anytime by unlocking different subscription plans according to your organization's needs. And then you can check out our help site for a wealth of resources and follow the product updates as they're released quarterly. Be sure to visit our Dimagi Academy for courses designed for folks just getting started with CommCare. And all of these resources are completely free and available to you. And then finally, you can check out our official 2026 roadmap for what's coming up in CommCare. If you have more questions or want to learn more, we would love to hear from you. We'll be sharing a quick post-webinar survey in just a few minutes where you can raise your hand for a follow-up from one of the folks on our team. But before we wrap up, we do want to share an important note regarding the active Ebola outbreak. For any organizations or teams currently responding to this crisis on the ground, we want to stand with you and fully support your work. To help, Dimagi is offering a contact tracing template application completely free of charge for a year to support your response efforts. So if that's something that you think would be useful, please send us an email, write to us. We'd love to get in touch and see how we can come alongside and support. And with that, I think we can go ahead and launch the poll, our final poll, and we'll just give folks a couple minutes to respond there. All right, I think we can take that poll down, and if folks decide later that they want to reach out, you can respond to us. We're going to send out an email in the next day or so with a copy of the recording. Please feel free to reach out to us at any time if you have any follow-up questions. I would like to just thank Kai and Rishabh for these incredible product updates from the team. And we also just want to say thank you to each of you in the audience for showing up and being part of this incredible community. We are just about at time, but for anyone who's okay to go a couple of minutes over, we'll take a look at Q&A and see if we can respond to some of the questions that have come through. So I'm gonna stop sharing and we can take a look at our Q&A box. It looks like our team has done a terrific job of answering folks. So I just want to check in with my team. Have we missed anyone?
I don't think so. It looks like we've gotten a lot of questions. You guys are making me sweat in the Q&A box, by the way. Great questions. Maybe too good of questions. Lots of ones about locked admin questions and what it looks like to be the locker and the person who's kind of more downstream on that. There is some really good documentation that I linked about that, and also it's super fun and easy to test out. So you can create kind of two users for yourself, one that's a true admin and one that's not, and it's really easy to kind of switch between screens and look at that. And then it looked like there were some other questions about advanced case actions, specifically about the linking and unlinking. And so that's where you can actually reassign child cases to new parents. So that was something that was not so easy to do before, something that you can let your users now do in application. So yeah, that's another great functionality. And there are a few questions and answers about that in the box as well.
Thank you, Erin. Well, thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. We are at time, and you can expect an email from us in the next day with a copy of the video recording. And of course, reach out to us at any time if you have any follow-up questions. You can email us at info@dimagi.com and or check out our website. But thank you so much for joining.